blocking you. Okay. All right. So this is our last class. Just to review, just in terms of what we did last time, first of all, it's good to see everyone, and thank you for coming and for this last class. So we learned a piece of Gemara. We tried to make our way through a sugyot in a Gemara, Shakla V'Tarya, which means literally the give and take. And we basically made it through an entire discussion of the Gemara. We skipped a few lines because we needed to because of time, but we basically made it through an entire sugya. So just to review it though, I don't know if anyone looked in the source sheets, I'm going to share my screen because that seemed to work for people. I sort of wrote a very, very basic outline of the Gemara that we learned last time. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. I will share my screen. Everyone should feel free to unmute themselves if they want. Certainly want people to discuss. Let me pull up. One second. No, that's not what I want. Okay, does everyone see this outline of Psachim 99b?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone see my screen? Okay. So hopefully this will sound familiar if you were here last time. So last time we learned the Mishnah. The most important line of the Mishnah for our purposes was, the Mishnah said, it is forbidden to eat on Erev Pesach a meal in the afternoon. Okay, without quite defining what does a meal mean or afternoon, but the Mishnah says it is forbidden on Erev Pesach, in the late afternoon of Pesach, Erev Pesach, to eat a meal. That is what the Mishnah says. So the implication of that is that before other holidays and Shabbat, it's permitted, right? It's a special halacha. On Erev Pesach, you can't eat. But the implication is on before a regular Shabbos or before another Yom Tov, you could. So based on that question, the Gemara asks, well, who is the author of our Mishnah? Which Tana, a sage of the period of the Mishnah, who would have written this Mishnah, which seems to be saying that Erev Pesach it is forbidden to eat, but on other Erev holidays or Shabbos, you may eat. Now, why are we troubled? Because we have a Braisa, a Braita. Braita is, again, a source from the period of the Mishnah. And the Braisa quotes two opinions. Rabbi Yehuda says it is forbidden to eat before Shabbos and every holiday. It is forbidden always on the Erev, the afternoon of any Shabbos, every holiday to eat. So he can't be the author of our Mishnah, because our Mishnah seems to say specifically Pesach. And Rabbi Yossi says in the Braisa, it's permitted to eat Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov. The quote is, Ochel v'holech ad shetechshach. You can continue to eat up until dark. And he doesn't say anything Pesach is forbidden. He seems to say blanket rule. Just like Rabbi Yehuda says blanketly is forbidden, Rabbi Yossi says blanketly is permitted. So who's the author of our Mishnah, which says specifically Pesach is forbidden? I'm going to pause there. I realize maybe I'm going a little too fast. Everyone needs to sort of get their minds back into the flow of the Gemara. Let me give everyone a minute to read that, soak that in again. Tell me if you need me to go over that again, or if that's good. This is just review of the Gemara. You know, sometimes when you're beginning to learn Gemara, you do have to write out the flow of the Gemara because it's so like weaving. Okay, what do people say? Is that okay? That's the Gemara's question. So who's the author of our Mishnah? Is our Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda, or is our Mishnah Rabbi Yossi? Neither one seems to fit. So answers. So the Gemara has two answers from Amoraim, from different sages of the Gemara. One will be the answer of Rav Huna. One will be the answer of Rav Papa. Now I'm going to pause here on a little bit of a tangential note. You see, the names of the rabbis of the Mishnah are Rebbe, Rebbe Yehuda, Rebbe Yossi. The names of the rabbis in the Gemara are Rav, Rav Huna, Rav Papa. So why is that? Maybe you wouldn't even think to notice it. So,
I didn't notice it.
Louise, you said you did or you did not?
Did not. No.
You did not. So
No,
it's
not
not
till you
just,
said something.
yeah, so it's not just random. You'll see in every rabbi in a Mishnah will be Rebbe, and in the Gemara, almost all are Rav. Why? What's the difference? Difference is that Rebbe was a title given to someone who had real smicha. What does real smicha mean? Means he received it from someone who received his smicha, the unbroken chain going back to Yehoshua and Moshe. Rav means that you're a rabbi. You passed your yeshiva university smicha b'china, but you don't have real smicha of the unbroken chain that goes back to Moshe and Yehoshua. So why do the rabbis of the Mishnah, they had real smicha, Rabbi, the rabbis of the Gemara did not. It's not that the smicha had ended by then, but it's that true smicha that goes back to Moshe and Yehoshua can only be granted in the land of Israel. So in the period of the Mishnah, everyone, at least all the great sages, still lived in Israel. So they all had smicha, true smicha. But in the Gemara, we learned the Talmud Bavli. They're living in Babylonia, in Iraq. So they could have been the greatest scholar imaginable, but if they were not in Israel, they could not receive smicha. So there were a few sages in the Gemara that did travel back and forth, and so they did get real smicha, like Rebbe Yochanan.
Do people ever go to the Yerushalmi, to Yerushalmi Gemara and compare the answers on the same Mishnah?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, it's not the most common thing. It's not what's part of Gemara 101, but
like, why not?
Yes. And funny that you asked. I'm going to try to do two things in this class, and the second thing is going to have to do with comparing our Gemara to the Talmud Yerushalmi on our Gemara. So we'll see an example of that. Okay. So that's why we have Rebbes, we have Ravs. Okay, so what are the two answers in the Gemara? Rav Huna says our Mishnah is Rebbe Yossi. And even though up here in the Brisa, Rabbi Yossi says it's permitted to eat before Shabbos and Yantiv, but Rav Huna explains he only permits before Shabbos and other holidays. But Rabbi Yossi agrees that before Pesach it is forbidden. So our Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, who says normally it's permitted to eat the afternoon on Friday, but Rabbi Yossi agreed that before Pesach you shouldn't eat. Again, a meal in the late afternoon. And Rav Papa says, no, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. And even though Rabbi Yehuda says it's forbidden to eat on any Erev Shabbos or any Erev Yantiv, nothing specific to Pesach, so why does our Mishnah point out Pesach? That's because Rabbi Yehuda holds before a regular Shabbos or before other holidays, it is only forbidden from quote-unquote mincha time. However, that's defined. But before Pesach, it's forbidden even 30 minutes earlier, samach lemincha, approaching mincha. And that's what our Mishnah is stating, that on Erev Pesach, it's even forbidden, samach lemincha, even just approaching mincha. And thus, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. So we have two opinions in the Gemara of how to read the Mishnah. Is our Mishnah Rabbi Yossi? And even though normally it's permitted, but Erev Pesach it's forbidden. Or is our Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda? And it is always forbidden in the afternoon of holidays or Shabbos. But on Erev Pesach, the prohibition begins even 30 minutes earlier. That is the end of the Gemara discussion for our purposes. Okay, so we have these sort of two branches in the Gemara of how to read the Mishnah. Please tell me, is this good for everyone? Is this clear?
Yes.
Good? Great, okay. So I have here on the bottom, the argument is about how to understand the Mishnah, who is the author of the Mishnah, but ultimately the argument is really about, do you paskin like Rabbi Yehuda or like Rabbi Yossi? Because the halacha, we assume, will follow the stam anonymous Mishnah, our Mishnah. So Rav Huna, who's trying to say, no, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, that's because he thinks the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. So of course our Mishnah should reflect Rabbi Yossi. And Rav Papa, who thinks we hold like Rabbi Yehuda, is going to try to read our Mishnah to be aligned with Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so that's really the machlokas. Do we hold like Rabbi Yossi or do we hold like Rabbi Yehuda? Now the Gemara tries to bring proofs to Rav Huna, to Rav Papa, but at the end of the day, the Gemara cannot bring a definitive proof to either opinion. And we're left in the Gemara with two possibilities, a dispute between Rav Huna and Rav Papa, how to read the Mishnah, which is really, underlying it, is a dispute, how do we paskin, like Rabbi Yossi or like Rabbi Yehuda? So the question is, well, who do we paskin like? Whose opinion do we accept? Right? The Gemara doesn't really make it clear. In class number 2, we saw it was about how the language of the bracha. There the Gemara said, V'hilchasa, and the halacha is like this. Sometimes the Gemara will state explicitly who is accepted la halacha, but sometimes it leaves it open. And then the later commentaries have to decide, basically, how to paskin. Okay, so that's what we're going to try to figure out. Who do we rule like? Who do we paskin like? Any questions so far? Okay, so this is our Gemara, the Gemara that we learned. We're not going to read it inside again. So if we zoom in, you'll see, I apologize, I don't have the commas in this one. This is the Brisa of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Can people see my mouse when I'm pointing to something? So you see here, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi says, Ochel, you may eat, the holech, and continue, ad shetefshach, until dark. Again, on Erev Shabbos, you can eat until it's dark. Again, I want to just say it again more clearly. The machlokas is, how do we paskin, like Rabbi Yehuda or like Rabbi Yossi? Which means, the question is, what's the machlokas between Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi? Can you eat Erev Shabbos? Right? Is that clear to everyone? So our question is, how do we paskin on that point? Are you allowed to have a meal Erev Shabbos? Right? That's the question. So if you see here,
What made you think about Shabbos? The original Gemara said Pesach. So where did they even start thinking about?
No, the Mishnah says Pesach.
Mishnah,
right?
Rather. I'm sorry. The Mishnah.
Right. So, but then the Gemara said, well, the implication of the Mishnah is Pesach is forbidden. Right. But on a Shabbos is permitted.
Right.
Well, is that Rabbi Yehuda?
But maybe they were talking about Pesach as opposed to other Yom Tovim and had nothing to do with Shabbos. Why did they all of a sudden start talking about Shabbos?
Well, again, we have a brisa, so it's a known fact that there is a dispute. That Rabbi Yehuda said you cannot eat Erev Shabbos, Erev Yantiv, never. And Rabbi Yossi in that brisa seems to say you may eat Erev Pesach and Erev Shabbos. So which one of those two wrote our Mishnah? So one possibility is our Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, and even though in the brisa he speaks generally and says in general it is permitted, but Pesach was unique. Does that answer your question, Louise?
I guess I'm wondering where the brisa comes from, but I guess I don't need to know that.
No, well, the brisa is a recorded fact, meaning that's a recorded dispute, meaning that's on the books. That's okay. Now I understand your question a little bit better. Brisa that's a data point. That has to fit in, Louise. That's
okay. So that makes sense. So the Mishnah says something. The brisa is also authoritative, and then the Gemara argues.
The Gemara is trying to fit it together. How do all these things fit together?
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All right.
Okay.
I'm glad I don't have to do this for a living.
So you would get it quick enough. Don't worry. So you see there's this little hay here. Everyone see that? Everyone see that hay? A little hay?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, okay. So that goes to, how do I move my screen here?
The little thing on the right side. There you go.
The top, that goes to the very top right. I have to move my Zoom windows here. That goes to right here. Hay.
There's the hay right there.
Everyone see that? So that hay sends you to here. In the Mishnah, you have a little aleph that sends you to this. It's a footnote. I mean, it's a side note, right? The bet goes to the bet and so forth. So the hay, which was, again, a note on Rabbi Yossi, who says you may eat on a regular Erev Shabbos, goes to this hay. Now, this note here, the top right, again, is called the Ein Mishpat and Ner Mitzvah, and these are where the halachos are cited in, for simplicity's sake, I'll say the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch. So if you want to look up this halacha, can you eat Erev Shabbos? It tells you here where it's going to be cited in the Rambam. So Mem Yud Yud apostrophe is abbreviated for Maimonides. Where does Maimonides rule this? Sham. Sham means there. That's the equivalent in the halakhic speak to ibid, right? Meaning, so you have to look to the previous note. But the previous note says, Maimonides, Sham, ibid, right? So you have to go to the previous one. So Maimonides, Perek Zayin, Mehilchos Matzah, in the laws of Matzah. So let's go back down to our note. Maimonides Sham, Maimonides there in the laws of Matzah. Pei Vav means Perek Vav, chapter 6. Halacha Yud Bet, Halacha 12. And additionally, this appears in another place in the Rambam. Pei Lamed, Perek Lamed, chapter 30. Me Hilchot Shabbat, it's also ruled in Hilchot Shabbos. Halacha Yadalid, law 4. I'm sorry, Halacha Dalid, law 4. And Perek Vav, chapter 6. Me Hilchot Yom Tov, the laws of Yom Tov. Halacha Tetzayin, law 16. So this halacha is referenced in 3 areas, which makes sense. It's referenced in the laws of Shabbos. Can you eat Erev Shabbos? It's referenced in the laws of Yantiv, the general laws of Yantiv. And it's also referenced in a specific section of halachos that are the laws of Pesach. Now, other halachos will only be found in one place, but this is a halacha that, since it's applicable in several locations, so the Rambam cites it in several locations. Everyone with me so far? So let's see what the Rambam writes. We're going to start with Hilchot, the citation of Hilchos Pesach. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So this is Hilchos Chametzu Matzah, Pei Vav, Perek Vav. We're not going to go through how to flip through the Rambam. This is the citation of the Rambam. So we're going to begin from this word here, v'chein. V'chein, and similarly, aser le'achol erev Pesach, it is forbidden to eat erev Pesach, mikodem hamincha kim'at, a little bit before mincha time. Now that's our Mishnah. That's not surprising. Kedei, in order, sheyikanes la'achilat matzah betava, so you will eat the matzah with an appetite. Still fine. Aval, however, ochelhu, you may eat ma'at perot o yirakot, fruits or vegetables. V'loy malei kreso mehen, but even them don't fill your belly, literally. Okay, so it means you can't have a meal in the late afternoon. You could have other foods, but don't have a meal. The Chachamim Arishonim, the early sages, that means of the Talmud, Hayumar even Atzman, they would make themselves hungry. That's what it means. Erev HaPesach, Kedei Lechol Matzah B'Tava, so they would have a good appetite. View Mitzvahs Chavivus Alav, and they would really enjoy the matzah. Okay, so there's a certain pious act to try to be a little hungry for the Seder. Okay, but so far he hasn't said anything surprising. You can't eat Erev Pesach, a big meal. Aval bishar arvei Shabbatot or arvei Yom Tovim. But on the eves of Shabbos or of other holidays, ochel v'holech ad shetechshach. You can eat right up until dark. Erev Shavuos, eat right up until dark. Erev Sukkot, eat right up until dark. Erev Shabbos, eat right up till dark. Only on Pesach is it forbidden to eat in the late afternoon. So who is the Rambam paskening like? He's paskening like Rabbi Yossi. Right? Rabbi Yossi was the one who said it is permitted to eat before Shabbos and the holidays, and only Pesach is it forbidden. So he's paskening like Rabbi Yossi. Okay, now we're not going to discuss why that is. That's then the next question. Why did the Rambam pick Rabbi Yossi over Rabbi Yehuda? But that is how the Rambam is paskening. Okay. Any comments on that? Okay. Now, if that's the only Rambam, we'd be fine. And that would be an example of sometimes you look up the Rambam, it's just black and white. Okay, he picked opinion 1 over opinion 2. Okay, then you have to ask why he did that, but at least you know what he's saying. But sometimes you have Rambams where, again, the Rambam didn't tell you his citation, what Gemara is coming from, and you're not 100% sure what the Rambam is saying or where he's coming from. So when you look up the parallel Rambam in Hilchot Shabbat, things get confusing. Now, what should the Rambam say? I'm going to ask you, everyone. And in the laws of Shabbos, what should the Rambam say about eating on Erev Shabbos?
He'll say Erev Shabbos is fine. And
Yeah.
oh, by the way, don't eat on Erev Pesach if it's also Shabbos or something
Fine,
like that.
okay. But on a regular Shabbos, he should say, you're allowed to eat Erev Shabbos.
Correct.
Let's see what the Rambam writes.
Oh, please. Oh, please.
Okay, I'm here to confuse you. Remember, Louise, you should have headaches. That's good. Okay, halacha dalet. Aser, oh boy, that's not a good word to start with. Aser likboa seuda umishta. It is forbidden to establish,
Right.
a meal, umishta, the Erev Shabbos, on Erev Shabbos, on Friday, mipnei kavod Shabbos, for the honor of Shabbos.
Okay, we're still good because that's
Why?
not fruits and sitting down and eating stuff. Eating
No,
up.
but he's saying you're not allowed to have a meal.
No, he's not. You're not allowed to have a Suda. But maybe first, the one of them says eat, and the other one says Suda. Ochel and Suda is not really the same thing.
Okay, you're making excellent points. But remember, even on Pesach, he only forbade a meal, right?
But
But Shabbos has to be more lenient, so you can't.
But even Erev Shabbos, he wouldn't sit down and have like a whole meal an hour before Shabbos.
Why? Well, I'm not saying it's a good idea, but Rabbi Yossi seems to say that's permitted.
Maybe not.
Okay, so let's keep going. You're onto something, Louise. You really are. But then umuter lechol v'lishtos ad shetechshach, and it is permitted to eat and drink until dark. The whole thing is confusing. Va'afal pikein, nevertheless, even though it's permitted, mikvod haShabbos, it is out of honor of Shabbos. Sheyimne adam mina mincha lamala, that from mincha onwards, a person should prevent or abstain milikboa seuda, from setting a meal. Kidei sheikanes l'Shabbos kshumis avalecho, so you should enter Shabbos with a nice appetite. This whole Rambam, it's like it has your head spinning a little bit at first, right?
Oh, makes sense.
Well, okay. So let me ask you something, Louise. Since to you it makes sense. Okay, when should you not have a meal on Erev Shabbos? Or is it forbidden? The first line he says, "Aser likbo," it's forbidden. Then he says, well, it's permitted, but afal pikein, nevertheless, mikvod Shabbos, out of respect for Shabbos. It sounds like it's not an absolute obligation.
I guess I'm looking at likboa suda and le'achol something as being two different things.
Okay, you're absolutely right. So I'm not going to get too bogged down here, but just like the Rambam is like a Gemara, you have the Rambam in the middle, you have two commentaries on the outside. The Kesef Mishnah is the same author as of the Shulchan Aruch of Yosef Karo. So he wrote a commentary on the Rambam. So he explains that, I'm not going to read it inside. There is another Gemara in Gittin Lamed Ches Amud Beis, which also talks about having meals on Erev Shabbos, which me and you wouldn't have necessarily known about. And if you read the Rambam carefully, he says, Aser likboa seuda, it's forbidden, Aser likboa seuda umishta. That's also a new word. Mishta is a connotation of like a party.
That's like a Megillah Esther Mishnah?
Yeah, a Mishta, yeah, exactly. Like a big party, a celebration, not just your regular lunch, like a big festive meal, like not a regular day meal. And the Mishnah and the Gemara in Gittin, this other Gemara, basically is a source that says the entire day Friday, not just in the afternoon, the entire day it's not right to have a big festive meal. That's disrespectful to Shabbos. So the Rambam is saying, Asr likbos seuda u'mishta. You cannot have a festive meal be'erev Shabbos on Friday, the entire day Friday. Umutter lecho b'lishtos ad shetachshach. Even though, but regular eating, you can eat the entire day, like Rabbi Yossi. He passes like the lenient opinion. Nevertheless, it's proper to avoid a meal. It's not forbidden, but it's proper to avoid a meal. So there are three levels. Regular eating, totally permitted the entire day. A meal is proper to avoid in the afternoon, and a festive meal is forbidden the entire day. I'm worried I went a little too quick here, but my point just is this is an example of, you look up the Rambam and you're like, where did all this come from? Like, it's not just like a simple cut and paste of our Gemara. And so you have to look in the commentaries of the Rambam. And then in this case, we realize, oh, well, the Rambam is sort of synthesizing two Gemaras, our Gemara in Pesachim plus this Gemara in Gittin. And, he comes out with what he comes out with. Okay, let's pause here for a second. Any questions or comments on this, on the process itself of sort of looking, see what the Rambam how the Rambam paskins, on the content of the actual halacha we're studying. Any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, let me give you one other. Yes, Arpad.
So how about Yom Yerushalayim tomorrow?
Very good. So the you would be allowed to. If you look up in the Shulchan Aruch, the halacha is you can't have a festive meal on Friday, but if there's a mitzvah that happens on Friday, then you're permitted. Like, let's say there's a bris. You have a bris on Friday. So what, you can't have a big celebration for the bris? No, you're allowed to, because you're not choosing to do it on Friday. It's not right. You want to have I don't know, an anniversary party. And Friday's not the date of the anniversary, but you're doing it rather than, so you shouldn't pick Friday midday to have a big party.
But there's plenty of
A lot of Israelis have weddings on Friday.
Yeah.
Right, very good. So a wedding also, I have to review all the halachas, but you're right. People do have weddings. And there was actually, it's a very old custom to have weddings on Friday, actually. It seems strange to us, but that was actually always, that was a very common custom. But let's say for not a mitzvah, and there's no particular reason to have on a Friday, you're not supposed to choose to have a festive meal on Friday. But if something happens, or there, again, obviously like a bris or something like that, then it is permitted. So you can have a big festive meal in honor of Yom Yerushalayim on Friday. Or we spoke about Arkadi, we spoke about on Purim, right? When Purim's on Friday, you have a big party, right? Okay.
Didn't somebody mention last week or the week before that since the definition of Suda is you eat bread, and since you can't eat either matzah or bread that day, maybe we're back to that same old...
Related. I'm going to get back. Tosfos asked that question. Okay, I want to give you one other example of how later... So that was an example of the Rambam simply codifying one opinion in the Gemara. It's not really an interpretation of the Gemara, or implicitly it is. It's really just about, okay, well, then if the Gemara doesn't say how do we paskin, where do we go from here? This next issue is going to be an issue of interpretation. So we saw at the end of the Gemara, I'm going to remind you, there is a dispute. If, let's say, you started a meal on Friday in a permissible manner, and you keep eating all the way up until dark, again, regular Shabbos, and then it gets dark, it's now Shabbos. Do you need to stop the meal, which means bench, stop, make kiddush and wash again? Or can you continue eating into Shabbos? And the Gemara says that was also a dispute between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, two sages of the Mishnah. Doesn't matter who said what. It was a dispute of the sages of the Mishnah. Must you stop when Shabbos comes, or can you continue eating into Shabbos? Good so far? Okay, then I'm here, the fourth to last line. We're just going to read 2 lines of Gemara. We read this last time also. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. These are sages of the Gemara, Amoraim. And they said, Ein halacha lo Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda. Vilo Rabbi Yossi. And the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yossi. Ella, rather, there's a compromise position. Pores mapa umakadesh. You pause your meal once it gets dark. Pores mapa, you cover it with a cloth, with a covering. Umakadesh, and you make kiddush. So you don't have to end the meal, you don't have to bench, but you can't just continue straight on. So you pause, you make kiddush, and then you keep going. And this is what Rabbi Goldvich does, as Arkady mentioned, on Purim and Shabbos. Okay. Now there's a basic fundamental question on this Gemara. We'll see if anyone can think of it.
Don't we have to daven?
No, forget about you're Arkady asking good questions, but within the Gemara, not something omitted by the Gemara.
Is the same Rabbi Yehuda who says that this is like him and not like him, it's the same person twice?
No, very good, because again, this is the way you know the difference is.
Oh, one is Rav and the other is Rav.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I also know because Shmuel's an Amora, so Rabbi Yehuda is quoting Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda has to be an Amora, sage of the Gemara. But this Rabbi Yehuda is a sage of the Gemara. Okay? And he says, no, Rabbi Yehuda, the sage of the Mishnah, is not correct. Rabbi Yossi is not correct. Rather, we do this. So the problem is as follows. Rabbis in the Gemara cannot argue on rabbis in the Mishnah, right? We discussed this. If there's no opinion that they can hang their hat on, so to speak, then they're wrong. So there are two sages of the Mishnah who had two opinions. Either you must totally stop and kiddush and wash again, or you can keep going. So how can this Rav Yehuda, the name of Shmuel, who's the sage of the Gemara, say, no, we don't follow him, I have a new opinion. The sages of the Gemara cannot have totally new opinions. That is the problem. Everyone understand the question, the problem? Okay. So we'll see there are two opinions in the commentaries how to deal with that. So the first interpretation comes from the Rashbam. Remember, the Rashbam is a grandson of Rashi, and he's really just a more verbose Rashi. He's more or less in the style of Rashi, but wordier.
Can you make that a little bit bigger if we're
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for asking. Sure. How's that?
Oh, yes, thank you. You have young eyes.
Okay. So the Rashbam writes as follows. I apologize. I should have put in commas, but okay, we're starting from here after this period. Vinira be'enai. That means it seems in my eyes, it seems to me. Desvira le lishmuel, that Shmuel holds, de halacha kerebi Yossi. Really, the halacha does follow Rabbi Yossi, who says you may continue. I'm going to make it even bigger for everyone. Again, the halacha Rabbi Yossi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, the lenient opinion that you can continue eating. Okay, I'm skipping some lines to this long acronym. Daled Aleph Lamed Taf Hey. That is De'i Lo Temahachi. Because if you don't say so, if Shmuel does not hold like Rabbi Yossi, Shmuel Da'amar Kaman. Shmuel is saying like whom? Who does he hold like? He can't invent a third opinion. He's a rabbi of a Gemara. Dahabrais. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm skipping words here. I'm sorry, we should have read a little bit earlier. Again, halacha Rabbi Yossi, shekavu halacha kamoso. They established the halacha like him. Ella sheba lahachmer la'atzmo. He just had a personal stringency. Let me explain what the Rashbam is saying if that wasn't clear. Rabbi Yehuda says you must end your meal right away. Bench, stop, kiddush, and you must make kiddush and wash again. Rabbi Yossi says, no, you can keep going. You can keep going. No reason to stop. Shmuel really fundamentally holds like Rabbi Yossi. You can keep going. He paskin like Rabbi Yossi. You can keep going. But he said, but why don't we go beyond the letter of the law and at least make kiddush? You really don't need to, because since you started the meal, you can continue. Well, that's not so nice. So let's go beyond the letter of the law and make Kiddush. So he's not inventing a new opinion. He really paskin like the lenient opinion. But he said, I think though it's a nice thing to do. Are you absolutely obligated to do that? No, because that's not one of the opinions of the sages of the Mishnah. But so really if someone would press him, he would say, okay, you don't want to make Kiddush, fine, keep going. You're really allowed to keep going. But if you'd ask me, it's the nice thing. You should take out a cup of wine and make Kiddush before you keep eating. Does everyone
Rabbi,
understand what the Rashbam is saying to answer our problem of how can Shmuel create a new opinion? So the answer is Shmuel is not creating a new opinion. He really agrees the basic halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. You don't have to stop at all. But people can suggest ways to go beyond the letter of the law that are not absolutely obligatory.
But Kiddush is a night Kiddush is a Torah obligation, isn't it?
Correct. Everyone agrees eventually you're going to have to make the Kiddush. The question is, do you need to stop your meal and make the Kiddush? Or can you finish eating while you're eating and then make the Kiddush later? So everyone agrees you're going to make the Kiddush later. Sorry if that wasn't clear. The Machlokas just says, do you have to stop right now? So the Rashbam is saying Shmuel didn't mean to say this is a new third, strictly speaking, opinion. He really is posing like the lenient opinion, but he's saying, but it's proper to do this.
But that's not what he said. I mean, is this one of these like where, oh, he's so firm, he never would have said that?
Why? What do you mean that's not what he said?
But didn't he say that you didn't have to stop?
Rabbi Yossi said you don't have to stop.
No, Rabbi Shmuel said you don't.
No, he said you don't have to bench, but you need a pores mapu makadosh. You need to pause, cover it, and make Kiddush.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but then Rashbam is saying, well, that's not what he meant?
No. The point is that again, I should have written a flow chart for this also. In the sages of the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda said you must bench and totally stop. Rabbi Yossi said, keep going, you're allowed to keep going. And Shmuel then said, you're right, you're allowed to keep going, but it's proper to stop. It's proper to pause and make Kiddush. Even though Rabbi Yossi says you may keep going, that is true, you may keep going, but it's still proper to at least make Kiddush first. That is what Rabbi Shmuel was saying. Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Shmuel. Let's see in contrast Tosfos, and we'll see maybe in the contrast it'll become more clear. So this is Tosfos. Tosfos, by the way, are like the brothers and cousins of the Rashbam. Rabbeinu Tam is perhaps the greatest of the authors of Tosfos. Tosfos is really a school. It comes from many scholars. And the greatest of the school of Tosfos is Rabbeinu Tam, who's a different grandson of Rashi, who's the first cousin of the Rashbam. So Tosfos first says, Pirush Rashbam, and it then quotes the Rashbam, again, who said that Shmuel was just saying, I think it's proper to make Kiddush. But not that he was saying you must make Kiddush, because then he's inventing a third opinion that doesn't exist. So Tosfos says, we're going to jump to the middle of Tosfos, to this word here, ubechinam. People see where my mouse is? Ubechinam dachak. And for, chinam is like for free. For no reason, dachak, my cousin the Rashbam contorted himself in this interpretation. De Shmuel savar kechachamim. Shmuel does not hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Shmuel does not hold like Rabbi Yossi, but he holds like the chachamim. There was a third opinion from the period of the Mishnah, from the sages of the Mishnah. Dahachi Isa be Yerushalmi. This is stated explicitly in the Talmud Yerushalmi, in its discussion of our Mishnah, which says as follows: Rav Yehuda b'shem Shmuel, the same teaching. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Zu divrei Rabbi Yehuda. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that what? You must bench, totally stop and bench. Rabbi Yossi, and this is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, you may continue straight on. Aval chachamim omrim, but the sages from the period of the Mishnah said, quote, Pores mapa umakadesh. You pause, you cover, and you make Kiddush. So this is not a new stringency that Shmuel was inventing. this was a third opinion from the period of the Mishnah, from a brisa, and Shmuel was ruling like that third opinion. Now, that's not so clear in our Gemara, but if we have this parallel Talmud Yerushalmi, that does seem to be the background behind Shmuel's ruling. That Shmuel was simply ruling according to this third opinion. And so according to Tosafos' opinion, Shmuel is not suggesting a meritorious practice. Shmuel is ruling like an opinion, and that is the black and white halacha. You must pause and make kiddush. It's not just a nice thing to do. You must pause and make kiddush. Let me say the whole thing again. Our Gemara seems to present two opinions from the period of the Mishnah. And then Shmuel comes along and gives a third opinion. So we said, how can you do that? You can't make up a third opinion. So one interpretation is, you're right, he was not making up a third opinion, and he never claimed to say what he was saying was actual halacha and required, but he was giving a meritorious suggestion, and later sages can do that, right? Someone can say, listen, the halacha is really permitted, but it's a good thing to go a little bit beyond the letter of the law. And so that's what Shmuel is doing. And Tosafos says that no, Shmuel is citing for us a third opinion from the period of the Mishnah and ruling according to it and saying that is the halacha. And he's not inventing a third opinion. This was a well-established, documented third opinion. How do I know that? Because the Talmud Yerushalmi says so explicitly.
So how come these people write down the Gemara? They have this argument. They know where the argument is coming from. Why don't they just write it down?
In the Gemara itself, you're saying?
Yeah.
You're right. Listen, the Gemara, the Gemara itself is a recording of conversations. And you're right. There could have been certain things that at the time they thought everyone knew. So it was like they took it for granted. But after, 1,500, after 1,000.
Gemara, there is no resolution to this.
Ask again, Arkady. Say it again.
There is no resolution. Like they break down the very rule that they can't contradict Mishnah,
right?
And nobody brings up this discovery that there was a third opinion.
Well, that's what Tosafos is saying. That's what Tosafos is saying. He's saying, no, don't worry, there was a third opinion. You're asking, why doesn't the Gemara make clear there's a third opinion?
Why doesn't the Mishnah make clear that there's a third opinion?
Well, Tosafos would tell you that there was a brisa that did make that clear, and Shmuel knew that brisa, but the Gemara didn't necessarily quote it because, again, we know the Gemara. We know for sure there were many brisas that didn't make into the discussions of the Gemara. The Gemara is, for better or worse, it's the recording of the important conversations of the sages of the Gemara. But that doesn't mean it captured every teaching that was around back then. And that's part.
Seems like a trick question, You have two Mishnahs. Here's one opinion. Here's the second opinion. The Gemara argues about it, and then they say, oh, no, there's a third opinion. We just didn't tell you what it was.
Well, Shmuel is saying, again, there's not a whole lot of conversation with the Gemara. The Gemara quotes the two opinions. Then Shmuel says, but there's a third opinion. And so according to Tosafos, Shmuel saying, there's a third opinion from a brisa. According to the Rashbam, Shmuel saying, listen, those are the two opinions. I think you should be personally strict and go a little bit beyond the letter of the law. Yeah, I don't know. Did that answer your question, Louise?
No, but it's okay.
Okay. So this is an example of, we have two different interpretations of the Gemara. What was Shmuel saying here? Is he quoting a third opinion, which would be a, halachic binding obligatory opinion? Or was Shmuel saying sort of a suggested meritorious practice? And they're both driven by the same issue because Shmuel can't create a new opinion that didn't exist. But this is the kind of thing that the commentaries, the great medieval commentaries, would have disputes about how to read the Gemara, and about many other things. But what I wanted to show with you in this class was, again, the second one, referring to the one we just did, is an issue of interpreting and an argument with two different interpretations. And what we saw earlier was an example of not so much interpretation, but given that the Gemara leaves off with multiple opinions, so which do we accept? How do we rule? So we saw one example of the Rambam and how the Rambam ruled, even if there are certain complexities in the Rambam's opinion. Again, the point of these classes were to give everyone sort of a flavor of what goes on and to give everyone at least some examples of it. So when they'll encounter similar things in Shurim, they'll be more familiar with it. I hope it accomplished that. And I don't know, I can still stay for a few more minutes, but I don't want to keep anyone that's late. If people still have questions, they can discuss. Before we do that, before anyone signs off, I'll just say that I certainly enjoyed learning with everyone. And you asked excellent questions and pressed me to sort of be able to formulate things more clearly that just for me are given. I hope everyone else enjoyed it and got something out of it. So thank you very much for coming and participating.
We hope that you will do this again or continue. However.
Okay, we'll figure out how to do this. We'll figure out how to continue in some way. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
And kids learn how to do this when they're like high school. This is like what my kids are doing in high school.
A little bit. They're different. Yeah, I think so. But I would say this: what they would. So the answer is yes. But I would say, like, let's say in Maimonides or any similar school, a good school like that, they would do what we did. Let's say learning the Gemara, learning the Rambam, learning this Rashbam and Tosfos. That would be like 2 weeks of classes. They're also trying to teach them how to read it. So they're also just going through the Gemara slowly, just in terms of learning the words. So I think yes, they would do this, but it would be at a much slower pace.
Do they fundamentally challenge the way this whole thing comes together, like sort of the questions that we ask, why it's not just simply listed?
Yeah, you're asking that in our high schools?
Yeah.
I would say most high school students are not as sophisticated as you, and even if they
no, they're very smart.
Well, okay, I
They
think
may just they're not ready to challenge the teacher. That may
be, or they don't exactly know how to formulate it. I think it depends on the class. If a student will bring it up, I hope a good teacher will engage it, will not just shut it down. But if the students are not bringing it up, I don't know if it'll be actively brought up. But again, it is. I just do want to say it is different, and in my opinion, I totally believe this. And the truth is, I shouldn't speak for Maimonides or any school. I don't know what's going on, but they're also teaching them how to read, and the skill to be able to read is so important. And to learn that, you really do need large chunks of time. And continuously day after day. It's like learning a language. If you practice a language only 1 hour a week, you're not going to really learn the language, any language. It needs to be a little bit more constant and immersive. So the time to do that is, thank God, children who go to yeshiva day schools, they can learn how to, become fluent readers of Gemaras. So,
but I can read the language, and it still doesn't make any sense to me. What you told us, I get that that's how it's supposed to work. But I can read this, but the words, like, okay, this one says this and that one says that, and but it's like, Why are they saying these things?
It's like anything else. It's a certain, you just have to keep learning a little bit, and you'll become, a native, so to speak. To me, it's very straightforward. It makes perfect sense, but I'm, sort of engrossed in it. But you have to, again, learn the language. When I say language, I don't just mean literally the words, but the way of the style of thinking, etc.
That seems like it's the hard part, So you have Rabbi this says this, Rabbi that says that. And then some guy comes in out from left field and says, oh no, he meant this and that meant that. And you want to say, well, where did they get that from?
Yeah, these are all good questions. So if we have more opportunities, we're going to learn more Gemaras, and we'll be able to discuss all these questions. We just don't have enough time to, to really discuss all of that. But those are all fair questions. Those are all fair questions.
If you picked up a text that you had never studied before with someone who knew it already, how would you even know what questions to ask?
You're right. That's why you need a Rebbe. People always learn from a Rebbe. Just very briefly, just to respond to that question, Louise. Again, if you think of the Gemara as a transcript of discussions in the Beis Medrash,
right?
That's what it would sound like. You're overhearing these people argue. One guy says, "This is the lacha," another says, "This lacha," and then someone comes and says, "What are you talking about?" Well, what about that? So it's it can be sort of things that feel like they're coming out of nowhere, and it's not. Again, it's a live discussion. It's not like a legal textbook. Right? And it's not a code, right? If you would read the Rambam, it won't be like that. If you read the Rambam is an organized code. It'll be totally conceptually make sense, give a general rule, give examples, dividing into categories, totally logical flow. There's not going to be disputes. It's going to be, this is the law, this is the law, this is the law, in this case. But that's not what the Gemara is. The Gemara is a freewheeling discussion. So it is going to be less organized in that manner.
You opened up a discussion with a small tangent about Rabbi and Rav.
Yeah.
So in the biblical days, smicha had to come out of Eretz Israel.
Correct.
How is it handled in current times? I mean, like Yeshiva University.
We don't have real smicha. Ours is not real smicha. Ours is,
What about young men who end up going to Israel to learn?
The chain has been broken, unfortunately. There's no more real smicha. Maybe there's a way to reinvent it, but there's a certain halachic process. The Rambam believed if you got all the sages of Israel together, you could restart the chain of true smicha, but the chain is broken.
So go ahead, Richard.
Over time, do you learn personalities of the Rebbeim in the Talmud? Like you have a sense of what's coming from who and what their attitude is going to be. And
yes, it's that's a more subtle thing. You definitely can. Even on just on a very basic level, this is a crude, not, nuance, but even just, like Hillel's going to be almost always lenient. Shammai is almost always strict. That's a very, I know, very simplistic example, right. But yes, to some degree, yes, both in halacha and in sort of their personalities, in terms of their, especially in the more non-halachic Gemaras. I'm trying to think of an example of that, but
and the Rambam's usually going to side with particular.
And that's more complex. There are many rules. I would say this: the Rambam. This is a difference between Rambam and Tosfos, or Sephardi and Ashkenazi Rishonim. If, let's say, there are two opinions, and the simple, straightforward reading of the text is like position A, even though you could fit position B in, and the Gemara tries to prove position A, but it can't really prove it, because at the end of the day, you could squeeze position B in. The Rambam will say, the simple reading is A, that's the halacha. Whereas Tosfos and the other Ashkenazi Rishonim, they had more of a position of, listen, position B is quoted in the Gemara, even if it's a little bit more of a difficult read, but the Gemara doesn't disprove it, right? The Gemara says it is possible. So you can't discount position B. And either they'll even pass like position B, or they'll say it's a doubt because it was never resolved. Whereas the Rambam is much more quick to resolve things and say, position A is clearly the more simple read of the text. We just follow position A. There are other things also, but that's a little bit of it. That's one piece.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we send our kids to day schools and they learn Gemara to learn how to read it, because you said it's almost a language on its own.
Yeah.
So when I was in school and teachers assigned us the book, there was a thing called Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
Does such a thing exist for like all the abbreviations in the Gemara?
Yeah. There's things for all the abbreviations.
dictionary.
There are student aids for all all these things. Yes.
Okay.
If you when you are able to go into Israel Bookshop, if you would want any of these things, ask them. They have all of these things.
Okay. Thank you.
So when
Okay,
people
let's
learn
maybe
can I have a
Oh,
quick question?
yeah. Sorry, Louise. Yeah, sure.
So when people learn Daf Yomi, they don't have time to, I mean, I know one of my kids says he doesn't like Daf Yomi because it's like spoiling the end of a book, but they don't have time to go into any of the subtleties of what are all these people talking about. So when
Correct.
they do Daf Yomi on something like this, they say, okay, this rabbi said this and that rabbi said that and that one said that and that one said that. Next page.
Well,
Making
to
sense?
some degree, the answer is yes, but it depends on the level of the people who are doing the Daf Yomi. If they are learned people, they can do a little bit more. Normally, I would say a good Daf Yomi teacher will give a clear presentation of the Gemara, the basic reading of the Gemara. And again, it depends how long your shir is, but if it's 45 minutes to an hour, like there's some, you can get a 25-minute Daf Yomi shir. They're really just to zoom through the Gemara. A more normal shir, which is like 45 minutes plus, will give you a straightforward reading of the Daf. And he'll have time to include one or two interesting nuggets. But they'll do it all, quote unquote, outside. Like he wouldn't read the Rashba Matosis inside. He would say, oh, and by the way, there's an interesting machlokas how to understand Shmuel here. Is Shmuel quoting a third opinion? Or is he making his own suggestion? And he'll sort of explain that in 2 or 3 minutes. But they won't be reading it inside. But they'll have time to just, for them to point out a couple interesting things. But you're right, there's not time to have a real in-depth discussion. Correct.
Rabbi Rosner brings in outside stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Rosner is he's the very top of the top. So, that's what he'll do. He'll give a very clear presentation of the flow of the Gemara, and he'll give you interesting nuggets, a machlokas rishonim or some application in practical halacha. Yeah. Is that who do you listen to Ray Rosner, Richard?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's all at warp speed.
It's
amazing how much is being covered.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Good night, everyom.
Thank
Happy
you so
Yom
much.
Yerushalayim.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you,
Very
everyone.
eye-opening.
Okay, great. I'm happy. It's a success then.